You're listening to the Ask Drone U podcast. You ask, we answer your drone questions. Whether you're here to turn your passion into profit or you simply fly for fun, we're a community of learners and teachers who aspire to achieve greatness. We are
Drone U.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another amazing podcast of Ask Drone U. My name is Paul.
My name is Rob, and this is episode 940, and yeah, I hope it's amazing. Hope you guys get a lot out of it. I think this is going to be a good, deep, information-packed podcast episode for you, and particularly you mappers and surveyors and all those out there trying to figure out how to get really accurate results, right?
Yes. Getting really accurate results is definitely important, and how we define those accurate results is also important, and I believe that most people are, when they say survey grade or precision grade, I think that they mean survey grade to the specifications laid out by ASPRS, and I think that's really important to understand. But this brings up a really good macro question. Today's question, we're going to kind of take it, we're going to kind of twist it, we're going to kind of throw it upside down, and then we're going to kick it. I hope that gave you a good visualization because we are going to do literally just that. To really be talking about what are reliable workflows for precision or survey grade mapping, because a lot of people are calling me and they're like, I love P4 RTK. It is fantastic. But during the government shutdown, I've got a problem getting a signal. So if I'm not getting an RTK fix, how do I ensure that if I'm going to say I can create survey grade results every single time I go out and map, and yet P4 RTK is not getting a signal every time I go out and map? What is the ultimate solution so that backup? No matter what, I'm getting my data?
Right.
This question has, I would say, inhibited a lot of people from purchasing the P4 RTK until they get answers to this question. It's a question that I even brought up with the company Propeller, who makes the Aeropoints, to say, I think I've got a good question and a good point to bring up the value of Aeropoints to our listeners, but got no response back. So unfortunately, we will just have to make assumptions, which I never like doing. Also, as I thought about their lack of response, it also made me think, you know what? This just goes back to, you've got to have a bulletproof system. Yeah, and no matter the equipment, you've got to have the systems to ensure the Toyota effect, which is that consistent, highly reliable data.
Toyota effect, I like that. And you've got to have backups to the backups in any sophisticated operation, right?
Right, and we always push redundancy. It's something that we always push, and someone even mentioned, you're always pushing redundancy, you should mention X, and now I totally forget what that was about, but anyway.
It'll come up at the appropriate time, I'm sure.
It will. So let's go ahead and dive right into today's question, which I think is really going to enlighten the minds of the mappers in this community, because there is so much going on with drone mapping, so much complexity. I love that more and more people are attending our mapping classes to get a lot of these questions answered. And even Vic said, you are drinking from a fire hose, which brings me to today's sponsor of the podcast, which is in fact the Las Vegas drone mapping class, which will be held at the Nelson Ghost Ranch. If you are not familiar with the Nelson Ghost Ranch, you can watch movies like 3,000 Miles to Graceland, and you will see exactly what that looks like. This is also a huge pivotal moment for me. This is going to be kind of a celebratory training for me. And for those of you who don't know, I've been training for a very long time, longer than most drone trainers. The only person that I know that's been training longer than me is Gene Robinson. Or no, not Gene Robinson, Gene Payson. I always mix those two guys up. Gene Payson and John McBride. But John McBride was training in not helicopters. Well, that's right, the T-Rex series of helicopters and model airplanes. Same with Gene Payson. But when it comes to drones, my first massive, huge training was at the Nelson Ghost Ranch. When I was, essentially working for another university, and actually an accredited university, And I was teaching members of the CNN news team way before they had a drone program. And went back when BBC was there and ITN was there, Discovery Channel was there. I mean, this was at the National Association of Broadcasters, and I was just brought in as hey, this guy knows how to fly really, really well. Let's stick him as an instructor for one of the stations.
Yeah.
And now it's
cool.
come full circle, Rob.
Mm-hmm.
We're throwing our own training out there.
That's pretty cool.
And I'm not just one of the little guys doing the instructing. I'm essentially managing at an executive level the whole thing. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's not what I was going for, but thank you very much. I'm just grateful to have a team, and I'm grateful to be here. I wouldn't want it any other way because I'm with the right people doing the right thing consistently. And
by the way, I know that's not what you're going for, but that's pretty cool. I mean, that's been a long road, and to be doing it here is a kind of a cool way to kind of celebrate the progress, so to speak. That's cool.
So true. And I'm reminded of it every day because I have a large picture. I know you've been in my garage. Mm-hmm. And there's that picture of that old red truck, and there's a Phantom 2 Vision Plus, like one of the first DJI all-in-ones floating over the truck. And I'm actually in the picture training someone. Yeah. That person that I trained owns a huge media house in Pittsburgh. I got one of my big jobs in. Like, it tells a story in just that one picture. And now every time I see that picture, I'm like, and I get to go back to Nelson. So if you want to join us for a very special experience on February 22nd through 24th, I would invite you to join us. You can go to our website, thedroneu.com/droneu-events. And you can see all of our upcoming trainings, and you can sign up for the mapping training. We are only about 40% full on that, right? Mm-hmm. We still have a ways to go. So go ahead and sign up for that. It's only going to be $12.97. If you've been to other mapping trainings, you may notice they're about $500 per day, not with us. And in addition to all the processing training that is focused around Pix4D, being a Pix4D partner, we have a little bit more freedom than other trainers, which I'm very grateful for. Pix4D, thank you very much. In addition, we also go over acquisition training, which is something I'm not seeing anyone else do. So you get to actually learn the relationships between these tricks and processing and how they are applied in the field. And we also get to show you the workflow of how we would do a mapping job, so you understand what is the actual workflow involved. Well, because of this flow or system of training, it's really drawn a lot of attention, and a lot of people have been saying, I'm really grateful for how you've kind of changed the training realm. That being said, come down, and you've got to experience a DroneU training because it is an experience unlike any other training. You won't want to miss it. Check it out, thedroneu.com. Just go down to events, click events, and boom, you will see it right there. Are we going to be adding that flight mastery training? I know I'm kind of like on the spot with you right now, but we are going to add the flight mastery training in hopes that we can get a location for that. We have not gotten a location for it. It may not happen, but we are going to try to have a flight.
So we'll add it when we have the location.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to get a flight mastery training. It's something that a lot of people who have come to our mapping trainings have said, I realize now after flying with you that I have a lot to learn, and I would have really appreciate that flight mastery training you guys did at NTSB. Can you do that with us? Yeah. So we're going to try to enact that at every chance that we get. Anyway, that was really long-winded. I'm sorry, but this means a lot to me, and I'm really excited about it, and I hope that you guys are too, and I hope that you join us. But let's go ahead and get into today's crazy workflow question.
Hey, Paul. Hey, Rob. This is Adam from outside of Raleigh, North Carolina. First off, thank you guys for fielding 2 of my questions last week. I appreciate you guys' feedback. It surely helped. My question is for a new company. I just got my business off the ground for drone services last week. As we get new clients that require survey grade accuracy, what package do we go with? Do we just rent GCPs as a startup company? Or do we go ahead and invest in the Phantom 4 RTK with the new PPK integration, some Aeropoints, etc.? So I'm just looking at what is the best package for us to go forward with good accuracy for our deliverables. Again, I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate the question. Good, deep question. I think there's some things that we're going to have to make assumptions on, like budget, right? What kind of clients they're working with that lead to what kind of revenue streams.
If it's survey grade, we need to just assume, like literally, we need to assume that
they can handle it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah, that's fair. So that's what we'll do. We'll assume that. And by the way, if you have a question, as Adam did, go to askdroneu.com. We would love to hear from you as well. We'd love to hear everything from mapping questions to process questions to business questions. Whatever you've got, send them our way. We'd love to try to get you on.
Yeah, we really would. Okay, let's talk about this really quick. P4 RTK. Are we going to get survey grade results every time? No. Why not? Because you may not have a connection to a network. That network is typically a public network or something that's run by the government, like the CORS network, which is run by NOAA, and NOAA was shut down. So a lot of people didn't have access to that RTK stream. Now, that being said, with the P4P RTK, you can pay for private access to a network, like private networks like SmartNet. SmartNet is run by Leica. Problem is that you can run into areas where SmartNet doesn't have coverage, like we did last weekend. So if you have a P4P RTK and you can't get the RTK fix, like from the network that's provided or to a private network that you have access to yourself, what do you do, right? If you, the whole premise about the P4 RTK is that you don't need ground control points. And I'm not sure that that's the case just yet.
At least not yet, yeah.
Since the firmware upgrade with the P4 RTK, we are adding the new RCPMT3 network. I didn't say that right. Anyway, long story short, we're able to pick up more ground-based antennas to get better corrections of that data, which is great. But without a way to log raw data from the P4P RTK base station, if we don't have an RTK fix, we could still run into significant problems. So it's been brought up to me through actually Glenn Johnson. You didn't realize that you did this, but you did this. So Merry Christmas.
Good job, Glenn.
Glenn Johnson says, I've been thinking about this too. I bought the Aeropoints because it's a PPK solution, right? Post-process. So if I run into a problem where I can't get a network signal, doesn't matter. I have my Aeropoints and I can, correct the data and the network itself. So during the government shutdown, Glenn Johnson, I said, all right, well, our SmartNet is not connecting. So we had brand new Leica unit, GS18. So we've been using the GS14. Johnny Spiva brought the GS16 to one of our mapping classes in San Diego, and now we have the GS18. GS18, no network signal. Why?
Uh-oh.
The local antenna was broken.
Oh, no.
Right? So on the edge of SmartNet at network access, right? So we would have barely been able to have network access. So our correction still wouldn't be amazing. But we would have had it. Well, tower's down, don't have it.
Shoot.
Okay. Well, CORS is down, can't use that either. So now we're stuck out there with landing pads, our GCP targets, and no way to pull accurate points. So Glenn says, let's throw the Aeropoints out there. He's like, I will just offset them to your GCPs for this project. This is for the Charleston mapping class.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, well, let's go ahead.
What a great class.
Yeah.
Seriously.
No shiza, like literally. Like
Being able to solve those problems in the field?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is what the guys eat up like Kobayashi, right? They love this. It's like candy.
Right.
So Glenn and I are out there, and he lays down the points. He's like, I've got a problem. He's like, with the CORS network down, Propeller may not be able to post-process and correct the Aeropoints. And it was like, what? And I was like, well, why? Okay, if that's the case, why get Aeropoints?
Yeah.
If the network is down for our rovers, and that same network is what they're using to post-process the data, why use Aeropoints? And he's like, yeah, I'm getting emails back from Propeller Aero that this is causing problems for a lot of their Aeropoints, but they're getting through it, and they're getting data back. He's like, we may get the corrections back, we may not.
And if not?
Well, luckily, he did end up getting the corrections back, and we got the data from Aeropoint back. And I will say they've also made it much easier to import that data into Pix4D. They sent him a simplified file versus the simplified and regular file.
How long did it take him to get that back to him?
Too long. I still think it's too long. Now, I can understand how it's longer right now because of the government shutdown.
Sure.
They're having to post-process in a unique, different way than their system typically provides. I get that. It still took 24 hours, but we were able to throw the Aeropoints into his map. And here's the beautiful thing, too. Because we were so close to sea level, there was a big error in our Z-axis, our elevation axis with the Phantom, right? And he was flying a P4 RTK. Threw the GCPs in there, floating in the map, right? This is a common problem, and this is, it's going to be in our comprehensive mapping class. So literally, and also as the bomb squad commander for the Charleston Sheriff's Office is like watching us because he's like, oh, I want to see if I want to work with Drone U or not, right? We throw the GCPs in there and everyone's like, oh man.
But wait.
And I was like, well, hold on a minute. I was like, there is a solution for getting our GCPs to actually, fix our map and fix that Z-axis error. And everyone's like, well, what? And I'm like, well, you guys just learned from Josh the merging of models, right? So if we use the same MTP locations and we use the same naming system for those MTPs and we put them in the same places, that's how we merge our maps, right? So what if we create the same MTPs and just say, hey, we're going to import our GCPs after we make the MTPs and say, force this geolocation correction. So went in there. And I learned from Glenn that we don't actually have to force all the GCPs like I've been telling people. You only need to do like 3 or 4. And I literally, boom, fixed the map right there in front of everyone on Vic's shady computer.
Shady.
Well, he had just bought it for mapping and it had like a 2 gig GPU card. And I was like, no, you can't use that. But anyway, fixed it on his computer. The entire map fixed the float. And now the GCPs are sitting exactly where they should be. And you see all these green lines correcting the camera positions. And everyone's just like, wow.
Wow.
And it was a real life experience. Like, this
Yeah.
is what you go through. So going back to why this is important for our question today, if we wouldn't have had the Aeropoints and if Aeropoint wouldn't have had a way to correct that data, which I don't know how they corrected that data. Typically, it's done through Opus. Opus was down because Core's network was down. So then you have things like Pathfinder. Pathfinder is the system that Trimble uses to post-correct their data, right? So when I was like, well, are Aeropoints really beneficial and really valuable? I was leaning towards no, and now I'm leaning towards yes. The reason I'm leaning towards yes is because they pulled through with providing post-process corrections to that data, okay? If they had not done that, there would be very little value in Aeropoints. But because they did, there is a lot of value. Now, for all of you surveyors out there, you probably see where I'm about to go with this. If my DJI RTK base station can pull raw data down and I have a way to store that raw data and then post-process it with something like Pathfinder, then no, I don't need Aeropoints. But right now, I don't know of a way to pull raw log data and get it out of the unit so I can post-process it. Do I think it's possible? Yes.
Just haven't figured it out yet.
Haven't figured it out yet. And by the way, there's someone in this industry, and you know who you are, my friend. Go Gators. Who's doing the deep depth diving that everyone needs to know, and he's doing it, and he's not getting any credit for it. And I don't want to give his name up right now because I don't want people to call him and say, don't do that. I want him to dig deep into the data and see what he can learn, because at the end of the day, he knows it's going to help himself and everyone around him. And I'm so grateful.
He's a very
I'm
valuable
so
resource to his
grateful for
company,
him.
by the way.
Yes, but I'm so grateful for him that he's also a part of this community. And it goes to showcase the fervor and unprecedented willingness to help that our community has and no other community in Facebook does.
Oh, yeah. It's
And
unprecedented.
People tell us that all the time. We're like, yeah, we know, but the people who listen on the show, they don't get it. But that being said, if we can use our P4P RTK, get raw log data, post-process it, and that means we would also still need GCP targets, right? Because if we're pulling the raw log data, we would still have to mark those GCPs in our map, okay? So we would still be using like some sort of GCP target, like the landing pads, to mark those points so we can physically mark them in the software. So with this long-winded explanation, where are we right now? Right now, the best, most reliable solution is still to use GCPs with a P4, just a regular P4 Pro, okay?
So that being the case, do you hold off on the RTK until it gets a little bit further along?
No, because there's probably going to be another price increase like there was last week.
Okay.
Because, let me say this, if you go through the propeller system, and buy the P4 RTK, guess what? You get 4 Aeropoints, right? So if I buy my P4 RTK from Propeller or one of their dealers and I get Aeropoints at the same time, now I have my bulletproof system.
Yeah.
But a lot of surveyors that I know are still throwing out GCPs. They're still marking them in a traditional way because what the situation and scenario that I just mentioned has not been fully vetted.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
there's
But
still
it's-
not
and
a gold standard. Does that make sense? Like,
It does, but it's changing so fast as well. You've really got to stay up on this stuff.
and it's hard.
Yeah.
And like honestly, I couldn't do it unless it were some of our unless members like Jason are able to help me, or unless members like Josh are able
Right.
to help, or people who have GIS degrees. You know, even Ongut chimes in all the time. Drone Gandhi, you know who I'm talking about. I had to say that. He hates it when I say it. So
He secretly loves it.
he
But that's
secretly
okay.
does love it. But
Very interesting stuff.
it just goes to show there
Crazy.
still is not a gold standard. The gold standard still as it stands right now, because if I need to get the job done every single time, I'm using GCPs and typically a traditional surveying tool to gather that GPS data. And even if I take it, so for example, with our Leica GS18, I can pull the points, get the raw log data, export that, and then post correct it. So even with our system, with the mapping training, we were still able to get our data because our unit is able to log raw data. If we knew if the DJI base station could do the same thing, it would be the gold standard.
Just not quite there yet.
Not quite there yet. It's also the gold standard because it's 7,500 versus 30,000. Excuse me.
Yeah. That's crazy.
I mean, do you remember the quote that we got from Holman's? They're like, hey, do you want to buy the used GS14? How much was that quote for, Rob?
It's like 13 grand.
$13,000 for a used 5-year-old system.
That was a 5-year-old system?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Thanks for the offer.
Not working with them anymore.
Wow.
Nothing like a slap in the face to say, all right, I see you.
Well, you know what? They probably sold it to somebody for that.
Hats off to them. And we're going to buy a DJI P4P RTK for half the price.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
anyway, look, there's a lot still to be figured out with this whole survey grade mapping, but I will just say everyone who I know in surveying is still using traditional surveying methods to gather those GPS points. They're still using GCP targets like our landing pads. They haven't moved to this point yet, but to me, okay, let me put it to you this way. If I'm spending my money, our money, if I'm spending our money, I'm probably going to go with this system,
Yeah.
which I have reached out to them. Maybe once they hear this, they'll be like, crap, we should have called them back. But I'm still hoping that they do, because I think that I kind of want to work this into our class if it does come to that point.
Sure.
But if it doesn't, then I'm kind of like, okay, holding it back in.
Yeah.
So because Aeropoints do have a unique value, but it's typically to people in quarries that need points out all the time. So anyway, this was a learning
There's a lot
experience
there.
for us. Yeah. But do you see how like in every mapping class that we're doing, the
Something new
information
comes out.
Exactly.
It's
It
crazy.
gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And literally, as Vic said it, because Vic kind of did the review of my mapping class, right? You got the old guy coming in like, hey, how are you guys doing in here? I want to see how it's going. And he didn't do that at all.
No, he didn't.
But,
He's just learning.
But he said in his long review, he's like, you are drinking from a fire hose. This could easily be a 5 to 6 day long class. He's like, but I understand how that's not feasible for most people and how we're trying to get this information out to people. But write an email to everyone going to these classes. Be prepared to learn. Do not be distracted.
Yeah.
You will fall behind
Be
almost
well-rested.
instantly.
Yeah, all that stuff.
So he's like that shouldn't scare people. He's like, because the way that you navigate through the information is actually really well done.
Yeah.
So anyway.
No, I mean the feedback's been amazing, and that's the proof is in the pudding, and the pudding in this case is the reviews that we get back from people that are going to the courses, and we're getting fantastic feedback. But
Yeah, I'm just so grateful too of the team that we have right now doing these mapping trainings. Like, super grateful for Josh. right?
Yeah.
Super grateful that we moved on from what we were doing.
Right.
Super grateful for people like PJ. Right?
Absolutely.
And, super grateful for PJ. So I'm also really grateful for people like Angud, for people like Bill, for people like Jason, for people like John McClain. Yes, that is actually a real person. You know who you are. I'm just grateful for all these people that are really, they understand that this industry moves at such light speed that if you don't have the ideology of lifelong learning and, trying to...
And a community of learning together, right?
Boom.
Because you're all finding out different things at different times.
Boom.
It's amazing.
That's why
really
Drone
amazing.
U. On that bombshell, it's going to do it for us today. My name is Paul.
My name is Rob.
This is Ask Drone U.